But let's start with the game in Oregon between Washington and the Ducks.
Again, I mean, Oregon was the last great hope, I think, for the Pac-12. And again, there's some good teams there. There's USC. You know, Utah is a good football team, but they're really not in the conversation. UCLA has played their way into the conversation theoretically, you know, and in the rankings kind of. But Oregon really was the last hope. And just like piranhas eat their young, Pac-12 powers eat themselves.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how awful Washington was on the road this year. I mean, they lost 2 of their 3 games prior to this on the road in the Pac-12, and the other one they really should have lost to Cal. But they just slugged it out. Bo Nix did something. Washington came back and answered. It was just, you know, and in that last 5 minutes, it was just back and forth. You know, I mean, Oregon went on a long scoring drive. Washington held them to a field goal, then came back and they scored a TD of their own. And then they held on again, and Oregon's, you know, last ditch effort, you know, in the final minute fell short. So this is the Washington team we thought we would see.
Yeah.
I mean, why didn't we see it the rest of the year? But that's a different show topic for a different show. But Oregon let a good opportunity, you know, slip through their hands. There's another reason this game was so impactful, though. Not just eliminating the Pac-12, getting into the college football playoff. With Oregon eliminated from national title contention, and the future of the Pac-12 being kind of foggy, you know, on an Oregon coast kind of fall morning, I think Dan Lanning may convince himself to toss his lot in with Auburn and go and take the Auburn job. There's been a lot of talk about it. Wow. He's denying it, you know, and saying, oh, no, the grass isn't always greener.
Could have happened to Oregon 2 years in a row.
Yeah, I know, you know, and then, I mean, I realized that Oregon has the financial wherewithal to pay him to stay if he demands it. But there's no spotlight that is brighter, shines hotter than in the SEC, even with teams that aren't necessarily the Alabamas and the LSUs. So I really think that those whispers that were coming up throughout the last week or so about Lanning going to Auburn, I think this loss, I think that basically Lanning's already looking at plane reservations. You know,
you think it lit the flame, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I really think that now he is going to listen and he is going to fly in after the Oregon Bowl game, if not before.
It'd be wild. It's so wild if you're talking about the 8th team in college football. I mean, they're ranked 8th. I mean, they're obviously going to take a step down. I think they dropped below the top 10 when the new AP came out. 2 years in a row, if that happens, that a new coach comes in. I mean, how wild is that? And we just saw the only time, with the exception of this game against Washington, that Oregon looked bad was that first game because they're dealing with first-year quarterback in the system, a first coach in the system, and they're going to deal with that again if Lanning goes out. I mean, that's wild. Speaking of Washington, real fast, we talked about how Penix is getting not paid attention to anymore. First and foremost, this is exactly the Washington team that we expected. We thought this was going to be a shootout.
Yes.
This is the team, just like you said, that we thought we were going to see all season long, with that little 2-week period. But when they played UCLA and then they lost to Arizona State, that was really the only time Washington looked like a bad football team. And that's enough to keep them out of a lot of conversations. But this is a team. I mean, Penix threw for over 400 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. He did have a pick. But this is a team that we could see as a 10-2 team, could end the season great, can put themselves in contention for a possibility of maybe reaching an NY6 Bowl. I don't know if that's is the case. They might just miss it. Regardless, though, they finish the season against Colorado. Then they go to Washington State. That's always a good game, by the way, too. But I mean, this is a team that I know that they're going to probably regress next year because Penix is probably going to be out the door. And then unless they bring in someone great, we've talked about how great the transfer portal is. But Washington wasn't a team that they should have slept on, and we knew that was the case. But they really showed up in this one. 37-34 to final. Michael Penix puts this game on his back. And we talked about it earlier with Oregon during our preview on Saturday. We thought that this game was in the hands of Oregon if they could handle the running game as well. Mm-hmm. And they looked good on the run game. I mean, this was a legit shootout. Bucky Irving had almost a $150. Bo Nix had a couple of running games. He had a rushing touchdown. Bo Nix did good in the running as well. There was a moment in the end of the fourth quarter where Bo Nix went down and he couldn't play one series. And that one series, when he wasn't at quarterback, they didn't get a fourth down conversion, and the game changed forever. And I don't know if you want to really put it down to just that single play, but it definitely was a huge factor. Now, if you're the 8th ranked team in the country, you can't rely on just one play. You got to beat teams. You got to put yourself in consideration for winning every single thing you possibly can. However, I think that was what really changed this game, and that's what opened up the door for Washington to get this win. And call it an upset if you will, but this is a team that we believed could have been at the top of the Pac-12 all season long, and they're just showing that, hey, we had a little bump in the road in the middle of the season, but we're back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Washington State, it's one of my favorite Thanksgiving weekend games. I mean, it really is all through the years. I mean, unfortunately, like USC, UCLA happens the weekend before Thanksgiving now because they play Notre Dame instead. But there's just those games that you see, even Oklahoma State actually is moved up a week. It used to be the Thanksgiving week or whatever. But, there's just so many great, Auburn, Alabama. There's so many great Thanksgiving weekend college football games. Just when you start to think, well, okay, it's time to focus on college basketball, you get those Thanksgiving weekend games, and you kind of get like Michael Corleone. Just when I thought I was, out, they dragged me back in. So, it's college football's not over yet. I mean, we're all excited about college basketball, absolutely, but college football's not over yet. And there are so many things to still be decided. Mm-hmm. And there's still many great upsets yet to come that you keep tuning into SlasherU. I mean, we're going to have lots of things to talk about. And we're like you, we're fans. We want to gush about everything that, that happens and that's great and that's unexpected and that's unusual. So, again, Oregon fans, Christian didn't say your coach is going to Auburn. Okay. The hate mail comes.
You're going to make a lot of Oregon fans upset, but that's okay. I mean, I'm sure that's not the first time they've heard this one. I've heard rumors as well. The Auburn job is going to really bring in some suitors from everywhere across the country. I just think it's completely wild if we saw it happen twice in 2 years to the Duck system. A program that is not a program that is a landing, or is just like a one and done kind of thing, but it might be turning into that. And that's absolutely wild. I mean, it didn't really work out so far for Mario Cristobal. Who knows if it works out?
I think it's going to, and I think that's another reason why Lanning would love to go to Auburn. Mm-hmm. You're really coming in and you're laying the foundation first, and then you're building up. Cristobal certainly has done that at Miami. He's gotten a lot of criticism because everybody is stuck in a time warp. Everything. It's like Back to the Future 4, where Miami is supposed to be great like they were in the 80s. Okay, this is 2022. It's not the same team. Give Cristobal some chance, but I think that's where the draw is. You can build a foundation, and I wonder, the Oregon program, why are so many coaches so eager to leave so quickly? Is there interference from the swish or the swoosh or from the administration where, they feel, look, I can't do things my way because they want me to do this or have this or play this game and wear this uniform, and how many different colors of green and yellow can we mix in a uniform over the course of a season? I think if Lanning leaves, I think it forces the Oregon fan base to start asking some serious questions about what's going on internally too.
That's a fair point. And I really do think that that's something, if that happens, we will start asking those questions and help them out as well. What kind of upsets do you think are going to happen in week 12? We saw plenty in week 11. I would say 5. You could even count higher than that if you wanted to. We only got one hand on here. So we said 5. What other upset did we not talk about that you wanted to talk about? Or which ones do you think might happen in week 12? Let us know in the comments below.